Welcome to the deep dive. We're stepping into the ring today, but not just for a boxing match. We're going to explore the life of a champion boxer who lived a life as wild and unpredictable as any knockout punch. Stanley Ketchel.
Stanley Ketchel.
Yeah, he was more than just a fighter. His story reads like a classic Wild West tale, filled with gunfights, daring escapes, and a tragic end that shocked the nation back in 1910.
Wow.
To unravel this story, we'll be looking at excerpts from a boxing news article called Stanley Ketchel, a handsome young man, a jealous lover, money, murder, and a rifle. Now you might be wondering, was Stanley Ketchel a victim of his own success? Let's dive in and see what we can uncover.
Yeah, I think that's the question that hangs over his entire story, isn't it? He was at the top of his game, but it's almost as if he couldn't escape the shadows that came with fame and fortune.
Right, and one of those shadows seems to be this wild side that the article talks about. They compare his love for fast cars to another boxing legend, Jack Johnson, who was known for his flamboyant lifestyle and sadly died in a car accident.
Oh, yeah. That comparison is really striking, especially since Ketchel himself predicted he wouldn't live past 30. It's like he had a premonition, almost like he knew that living on the edge could have dire consequences.
Yeah, and it wasn't just talk. There's this incredible story in the article about how Ketchel captured a Mexican fugitive. He was at a ranch with the owner, Jack Stagel, when suddenly shots rang out, and Stagel was wounded. Can you believe Ketchel actually played dead to lure the fugitive in?
Wow, talk about thinking on your feet. It shows a level of cunning and bravery that goes beyond the boxing ring. You have to wonder if that kind of quick thinking and risk-taking was part of his nature, both inside and outside the ring.
Yeah, it definitely paid off in this case. He tackled the fugitive, knocked him out, and walked away with a $1,000 reward. But it makes you think, doesn't it? How much risk is too much, even for a champion?
Exactly. Because even though he achieved incredible success, the article mentions how Ketchel seemed to crave the good life, wanting to enjoy the fruits of his labor. But can you really step away from the dedication and discipline of being a champion boxer and expect to stay at the top?
That's the dilemma. Right. How do you balance personal desires with the demands of a career, especially one as intense as boxing? The article says he retreated to Colonel R.P. Dickerson's ranch to recuperate. That almost feels like a turning point in the story, like he was trying to find some peace.
Yeah.
But trouble was brewing.
It's interesting how the article mentions his fondness for guns and his almost cowboy-like persona. It's subtle, but it definitely sets the stage for the events that are about to unfold. You get this feeling that Ketchel's love for risk and living life on his own terms might ultimately lead to his downfall.
That's a chilling thought. So we've got this champion boxer, known for his wild side, retreating to a ranch, and clearly comfortable around firearms. This doesn't sound good. What happens next?
Well, as much as Ketchel thrived on adventure, it seems his appetite for risk extended beyond chasing criminals. And unfortunately, this time, it didn't have a happy ending.
You're right. This is where the story takes a dark turn. The article paints a stark picture of the events that led to Ketchel's death. It's October 15th, 1910, and we find him at the ranch having breakfast completely at ease with his gun in his lap.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's almost a foreshadowing of his tragic fate.
It's almost like a metaphor for his life, isn't it? Comfortable and confident, yet surrounded by danger. And this is where Walter Dipley enters the picture. A ranch hand, driven by jealousy and greed. It's chilling to think how a simple breakfast could turn into such a horrific scene.
Yeah. The article doesn't hold back on the details. Dipley, seizing this moment of vulnerability, shoots Ketchel in the back with the boxer's own rifle. He then strikes him in the head with the gun, just to ensure he's dead. It's a brutal and senseless act that leaves you wondering how someone could be so cold-blooded.
It's heartbreaking. What's truly heartbreaking is that Ketchel, who had faced countless opponents in the ring and emerged victorious, was ultimately betrayed by someone he considered a part of his world. It makes you question who you can trust and how even the strongest among us can be vulnerable.
Yeah. It's almost Shakespearean, isn't it? This larger-than-life figure brought down not by a worthy adversary, but by a cowardly act of betrayal. And as if the murder itself wasn't enough, Dipley steals Ketchel's valuables, including a ring and two $1,000 bills, adding insult to injury.
The swiftness and brutality of the attack are shocking Ketchel, despite all his strength and fighting skills. Never had a chance. It makes you realize that even in the midst of success and fame, danger can lurk in unexpected places.
The article mentions that Colonel Dickerson, in a desperate attempt to save Ketchel's life, arranged for a special train to rush him to a hospital in Springfield, but it was too late.
It's a testament to the impact Ketchel had on those around him. Imagine the chaos and desperation as they tried to get him medical help, hoping against hope that he would survive. It speaks volumes about the kind of man he was, that even in his final moments, people were fighting for him.
So Dipley and his female accomplice are caught and sentenced to life imprisonment for their crimes. The woman, however, is later released. But the impact of Ketchel's death goes far beyond the courtroom. The article describes a wave of grief that swept across the nation.
Yeah, this is where we see that despite his flaws and his sometimes reckless choices, Ketchel was deeply admired. He was more than just a boxer. He was a symbol of strength, courage, and determination.
Absolutely. There are descriptions of schoolgirls dressed in white scattering flowers at his funeral, a poignant image of innocence mourning a fallen hero. Sports writers penned heartfelt tributes lamenting the loss of a boxing legend.
One line from the article really stuck with me. Only a murderer's bullet could stop Steve. He was just 24 years old. There'll never be another Stanley Ketchel. It's a powerful statement that sums up the tragedy of his untimely death.
It's hard to grapple with the injustice of it all. Ketchel achieved so much in his short life, but it was all cut short because of a senseless act of violence. It makes you wonder, was this inevitable given his lifestyle? Or was it just a cruel twist of fate?
Yeah. It's a question that lingers, doesn't it? Did Ketchel's choices ultimately lead to his tragic end? Or was he simply in the wrong place at the wrong time?
It's hard to say for sure, and I think that's what makes his story so compelling. On one hand, he lived life on his own terms, embracing risk and adventure. But on the other hand, it's impossible not to wonder if things could have been different. What if he'd been a bit more cautious, a bit more aware of the dangers that surrounded him?
Right. That's a question we all grapple with in our own lives.
Right.
How do we balance our desire for freedom and excitement with the need for safety and security?
Absolutely. Ketchel's story is a reminder that even in the midst of triumph, vulnerability and tragedy can strike unexpectedly. It's a story that encourages us to think about our own choices, our own risk tolerance, and the potential consequences of our actions. It's also a reminder of the power of legacy. Even though Ketchel's life was cut short, his impact on the world of boxing and his influence on those who knew him are undeniable. He wasn't just a fighter, he was a symbol of an era, a man who lived life to the fullest, even if it was a life filled with contradictions and complexities.
And that's the beauty of exploring stories like his. They challenge us to think critically, to question assumptions, and to recognize that there's always more to learn, even from figures who lived over a century ago.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the life and legacy of Stanley Ketchel, what do you think is the most important takeaway for our listeners? What can we learn from his triumphs and tragedies?
I think Ketchel's story reminds us that life is precious and unpredictable. It encourages us to pursue our passions, to embrace adventure, but to also be mindful of the risks we take, and to cherish the moments we have.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you with his final thought. Stanley Ketchel's life was a whirlwind of highs and lows, a testament to the human spirit's capacity for both greatness and vulnerability. His story is a reminder that even in the face of adversity, we have the power to choose our path and leave a lasting impact on the world.